highlights from the bog. So we did have our first meeting. I selected a small group to make sure that we could actually do it. And the power was out here. Some people had power out in other locations in Texas, and Skype went down, but we did it. So the good news is that we met as a group. I still want you all to feel like you're part of the group, and I'm going to show you another book that you might want to read. It's called Bog Bodies Uncovered. And you all know that I've read a lot of books. This is the most terrifying book I have ever read, because in this book, the basic thing that they're trying to uncover is why were so many people put into bogs. And they weren't put into the bogs just because they happened to die, but they were ritually abused. They were covered with different kinds of paints and runes and sigils. They had one side of their hair shaved or all of their hair shaved. They were even strangled with their hair. Some of them were naked. Some of them were tied up. Some of them were short. Some of them were tall. Some of them were old. Some of them were young. And what this book never really gets to in the archaeology or even in the paranormal questioning is what is the influence behind this that would cause humans to sacrifice other humans, to tie somebody out there, and to not just kill them once or twice, but to kill them so viciously that it was like killed 3 times over. So this book, for me, was evidence that there is something here that I would call the psychic influence of evil, or what is called the Wetiko or the Wetiko, however it is that you want to say that. But I have made videos before about dispelling Wetiko or Wetiko, and the psychic influence of evil definitely arrived here somehow, because there, as I've said in other videos, there are mass burials and there are ritualistic killings of humans. But what causes a human to put another beloved human out there for a sacrifice at the bog? What is it that is going on here? And I wrote some notes, and I'm going to just read that to you as a highlight. I did put something like this on my Facebook page. My Facebook is Lalita Karoli. My YouTube is Lalita Karoli, and it's in the community page there. And my Vimeo is Galactic Astrology. So concerning this book, Bog Bodies, which has a lot of photographs also, so get ready. I have never read such terrifying and yet accurate accounts of human sacrifice. If we can read the fiction book written by Michael Talbot about the bog, every question in Bog Bodies Uncovered as a documentary is answered. It seems an entity, call it the psychic influence of evil, got in here and called itself, quote, God. It establishes religious belief, and I don't care what religion that is, whether it's a pagan-based, it's a monotheistic, or it's a polytheistic, whatever it is. This psychic influence of evil got in here and established, call it even superstition, religious belief. And that involves a subordinate relationship between the, quote, gods, which I interpret as demons, and the humans. These demons make deals which require sacrifice. For instance, if everyone's having nightmares in the village, the priest or the holy person of the village will say, well, in order to get rid of these bad dreams or night terrors, we need to make a sacrifice. We need to make an offering. Now, that is a contrast to something that I want to bring out this year, which is magic, which is totally different than religion, and I'm going to explain that. Whereas humans have always had magic, and we were always in the wise place of knowing that we are the creators with an elemental realm, of balanced experience with nature. So magic doesn't have a subordinate position. You don't have to call on anything, you don't have to make deals, and you don't have to sacrifice anything to do magic. That's the difference. So the Wetiko has to have us in a belief system, some kind of subordinate position where we will sacrifice our own children, our own families. So now technology, or what I call black goo, is trying to make that same subordinate relationship in which we sacrifice our own human potential to AI. And that AI is quite aggressively loading us right now with something called graphene oxide, which is the created form of black goo, to place that demon inside our blood. So we feed it with our attention and our intentions, our life force, what is called our biofield or an aura. And that bog is now digital, a liminal space that preserves us as cadavers. Let me read that again. The bog is now digital, a liminal space that preserves us as cadavers. So if you read this book and start to understand that these things were put into this like watery liminal environment and they were preserved like mummies. They were preserved like their hair, their eyes, their internal organs, their clothes, everything about them is preserved. And the bog itself kind of feels like what this whole place is. It wants to preserve us as cadavers. But it needs us to almost sacrifice each other. You see, this is the part that's very interesting. It needs us to make the offering. So, the test that I was talking about, and you've all been wondering, what is this test? How do we pass the test? Okay. So the group that I chose, which is quite small, was chosen for their diversity. And I noticed it's really interesting how that diversity starts to polarize into people wanting to leave the group. And I'm not saying that's happened and that's not happening, but I've heard that about other groups. Generalizations that cause us to polarize and move away from each other. But the psychic influence of evil, which I'm calling Wetiko, will always seek to divide. I personally believe that Wetiko had to do with the Nog, and I watched another very true and amazing video about fossilized Nogs. So not statues of Nogs, but fossilized Nogs and heads of Nogs, bodies of Nogs that actually had like the arteries and the capillaries and had the windpipe, the trachea, the esophagus, also the vertebra of a Nog with a head that was cut off from a Nog. So it isn't just statues. There are fossilized Nog that have been found here also. So if you look at the demon in the Bog book, which you should look very carefully because that is the microcosm that I'm trying to point to, that demon, it's neither male nor female. So you can't generalize this is a problem of the men or this is the problem of the female. It can appear as anything and all things, even a moth, even a parasite. But mostly it appears as what we desire. And we're going to get into that. I'm going to cause that questioning right there. Do you desire some kind of immortality as a cadaver in a liminal space? Do you desire that? Is that why you're always seeking more information here? It's very interesting. We're going to get into that. And we did record, and I'll see whether the group wants to publish any of our recording. But remember, the demon is a genius. It's also called the daemon, Daemon, and it will accept a blonde or a brunette, young or old, able-bodied or disabled, short or tall, religious or rebellious. That it doesn't care, okay? It has been studying us for thousands of years, and when I say it is definitely associated with internet technology and AI. So this thing that feels like a serpent or a snake, it is AI, or what I call Yaldabaoth. It's been studying us for thousands of years, and the test is now this. Can we be diverse magical humans together or apart without polarization turning us into demons that would then cause more sacrifice? And I'm going to get into a place with the group that I think there is enough black goo in humanity where they will start to play Hunger Games with us. And they will try to get us to polarize and sacrifice each other. I do think that is part of what the project is, because it needs you to do it. It is just Wetico. It doesn't have arms and legs like you think it does. It needs us to turn against each other. And what was scary about this book, what was so absolutely terrifying to me, was these ideas of, this thing coming to you as a nightmare or a technological demon like we saw in the excerpt from Anna Maria Mihalche's experience with the red dragon that had her stabbing herself and self-sacrifice. So if it can get her to stab herself and self-sacrifice, you've got to understand that all of these bog bodies, something was pressing entire communities to sacrifice many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people into these bogs. And still today, we know that 600 to 800,000 people go missing still. And not just people, but dogs and cows and other animals go missing. Where are they? Never found that dog again. Never saw that 28-year-old person again. Okay, so that's some of what I wanted to bring to your attention. I also want to bring to your attention, when I looked into it, there are still religious groups, absolutely, in northern India particularly, in Uttar Pradesh, people having nightmares, and then 28 human sacrifices happening in 4 months, where the priests have been jailed because they were told that if they smear a child with sandalwood paste and ghee, cut off the nose, ears, and hands of that child, and then offer that child, then everything will get better in the village. And these holy men were blamed for inciting dozens of deaths that included sacrifice. So there is something here that requires our consent, really. We have to be like the perpetrator who offers the sheep or offers the child. And the other side of it, if you are reading the Bog, look at the deal that the sorcerer, is trying to offer the professor, because it's that information deal, right? But what he really wants is the professor's wife. And that is the bigger part that I want to get into with all of us, the small Bog group, but everybody who might be commenting on this video, is he wants that womb. He wants that womb to breed a demon, breed an actual demon that happens at a certain astrological period. And I have suggested, folks, that's where we are, which is why the raves are coming, because we are at the turning of an age which allows this to happen. And a highlight that I offered in the group was that this is true. If you look at the mythology, if you want to call it the mythology, or you could call it our history, even the Minotaur babies that were born, they were half human, they were half interdimensional being and bull, right? And they had to put those Minotaur babies down in the labyrinth and offer them human sacrifices. So the mutation that is available with the astrology that's happening right now is why I have been very stern and strict about not reproducing over the next few years. So I'll leave you with that as a quick Bog Highlight, and hope that you are part of this conversation, reading these books, whether you're in the little Skype group or not. I'm keeping it small because it's a trial run. It is a test. I want to see if we as humans can be diverse and magical in a group without ripping each other apart, without sacrificing each other, without assassinating anybody's character. That's the test, just in case you didn't know. Okay, bye-bye for now.